Hey everyone, it's Dennis. Hope everybody's having a fabulous Sunday afternoon. My co-host Mario will be joining here shortly, so let's see if we can add him into. Um, we're trying this new functionality here for co-hosting, and hopefully that will work. Let me see if I can add him. Okay, yes. 1 second. Okay, so got our first post. Let me in. Let's try to do this one more time. Let me try to copy messenger. Try to get this over to Mario. I don't see any option here that says to allow to have guests to join. Sorry, one technical difficulties. But it's gonna be a fun event today, so stick around. Right, copy. I mean, if anybody else wants to join, they can join technically, but Mario,
What's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing fabulous. How are you doing on this
Oh, I'm great. I'm sorry. My
Sunday?
my headset, my son stole the wire, and I was scrambling. I'm like, screw it. I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna go naked with no headset. That's what he did to you. I can't hear you. Oh, it just broke on you.
No.
Oh, there
This
we
is
go.
my son had to give it to me as well. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you great. Yeah, I'd rather have the headset on, but I was like spending 10 minutes looking for it. I'm like, dude, this is not time spent wisely.
We can hear you. We
Yeah,
can
that's
hear you
cool.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just like your sound better and your audio.
Well, I look like I'm flying here.
Well, dude, you dressed for the occasion. You did your hair, got a nice button down on. I got my hat backwards,
Yeah.
but it's all good.
That's okay.
Yeah, we got a flavor for everybody.
You are in the midst of it. You know what a true real estate investor is. You're out in the field. You're basically probably right now doing some kind of renovation.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
just enjoying Saturday, Sunday, weekend. Just loving this weekend. Great weekend here, actually. Yesterday, it was beautiful. If anybody here is on the
mm.
east side of the United States, really warm. I would say probably a lot warmer than usual. But today was a little bit colder, but it's still a very crisp beginning of spring kind of days. So, Mario,
Mm.
we missed you for the past couple of days.
Yeah,
Tell our viewers what you've been up to and where have you
yeah.
traveled to recently.
I was
Tell
I
us
was
about
at a really informative event in Providence, Rhode Island, but I wrote down notes I wanted to share. But the main thing, um, I think it covered a lot. It was one word that I wrote and I circled it, and I'm going to bring it up tomorrow to my team. Was consequences, and they kept
it.
saying consequences several times over in this seminar, and it's consequences of a W-2 employee's mindset, startup, a startup person's mindset, and consequences that occur, as well as like people that are trying to acquire deals. And the consequences are your daily intentional habits. And they mention if you're
Mm,
not intentionally um, having habits towards real estate and acquiring real estate, if you don't have a machine that is going to find a way to acquire real estate over the next 30 to 90 days, you're going to have a massive problem because um, how are you going to get deal flow? How are you going to have income? So the consequences are going to be financial consequences for people that are either inconsistent. You know, D. I mean, we talked about this when I was actually in Rhode Island. We were talking about people that come to you and they seek advice and guidance. But if you're constantly in and out of the game, you're going to have consequences where you're just going to get eliminated because there's a person every single day sharpening their sword and they're just pounding it, even if they're not as skilled as you. You know, like I don't if I'm not the best salesperson, but I'm hitting the phones every single day or I'm working leads every day, I am going to beat the person who has dabble here and there because it's just a consistency. So the consequences was a word that I thought was great across all platforms where they mentioned people that are doing it part time, that are doing full time. If you're consistently doing it, there has to be consequences, whether you're sacrificing by not having family time. God was like, you may not have the family time you want on a Saturday and a Sunday for just 1 hour. You're going to have to take 1 hour away to call sellers or 1 hour away from putting a deal together. But it's going to be the difference of what helps you, go through some of these tough storms that are going to occur here. And that was something I wanted to just share. I didn't want to get into all the data and the details. We could, but I like the word consequences, and I wanted to share that was a big takeaway for me. But sometimes you go to these things and you get all, you jump through all these different thoughts and like shiny object syndrome because there's plenty of it there. But I was just key on hearing certain word tracks throughout the whole thing. And I'm like, dude, I can't let these consequences happen in my own business by not staying focused.
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of expanding what I talked about. I don't know if it was last week or the week before that.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what I talked about: is consistency, consequences, staying in the game long enough, and you don't have to be the best at what you do, as
Yep.
long as you're consistently showing up every day. But at the same time, what I would add to that, what you said, Mario, is that people can be consistent. One day they're making a phone call, another day they are sending out mailers. So that is a form of consistency, but it would be a lot more consistent, actionable if they were just making those phone calls, right?
Yeah.
Just just being um, aggressive in their follow-ups and making sure that they carve out the time, as you said, which sometimes does cause issues because I'm sure people that are watching this, including you and me, we have families, we have
Mm-hmm.
lives. I was actually telling a funny story the other day, and I saying that I have 4 jobs, right? And
Mm-hmm.
a couple of them are jobs that I have to do no matter which way I spin and turn, and some of the other jobs is by providing direction and guidance to people that are coming up. As well as being involved in ventures. That's optional, but I choose to do that every day, and I'm consistent every day. And
Mm-hmm.
because of that, I'm getting a lot of people more and more coming to me in the creative financing arena because as rates continue to just explode, really no other options besides trying to go to creative. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of people now who used to be inside of just the traditional wholesaling space. They're talking about creative financing, but I think they're coming a little bit late to the party. Right? They
Yeah.
might still get to drink the Kool Aid, but they're just coming too late to the party. And what I will say is that we have came to the party, put up the cups, set up the plates. And what does that mean in real estate terms? We have the attorneys, we have the systems, we have the processes to take down creative deals, which most of them we want to hold as with anything. Economy at some point is going to rebound. There was actually somebody that was talking today that the economy might rebound as it related to interest rates by next year down to 4.5%. Can you
Mhm.
imagine if that's going to happen? And it's going to go up to like double digits, they said, over the summer. So
Yeah.
imagine going from double digits to, I mean, I might just get into mortgages at that time.
Yeah.
Do nothing but mortgages for like 6 months, and then you
Yep.
just relax on the beach
Yeah.
for the next year.
Wow. You know what? I think historically too. I watched a live with Brent Daniels, Pace, and Jamil, and Brent brought up a great statistic of people panicking over interest rates. If you look at the 20-year average on interest rates, they've been over 7.75, the historical average.
Yeah,
Because back what in the 70s and 80s and 90s, you're talking 10, 15, 20% interest rates. So I get it. It's a different economy now, but rates going up obviously is going to occur because of what the Fed's already warned us for. I mean, there's going to have, what do we hear several times? There's going to be two more Fed hikes.
yep,
Um, Also, there's going to be a compression
yep.
in the market because there's a lack of housing. So there's a Ray Dalio um, video. I don't want to butcher it, but he explains the economics very well of where we're at and what the constraint of the economy is. And it dives into the interest rate situation, the lack of housing, and the lack of why banks are diminishing because they're lending out money, and the investments that they made in other businesses outside of real estate, they can't pay back the interest because they're going down just as much because of the rates and the economics of everything. So, but the Ray Dalio has a really good. If you follow him, he's a world class business person, but his
I,
social media page is great.
I will now, but I haven't followed him before. But the person that I truly follow, and I find that everyone who's watching this should be following as well, is David Green in Bigger Pockets. He actually has a YouTube channel, and he goes on there once a week and on Fridays, and they just have these cutouts of videos that they do of other people talking about the economical conditions, and then they tie it and relate it to real estate. And I think the way that David Green explains it, he's not the Ray Dowie, but I mean, he just
Yeah.
has this unique way of explaining it. And by the way he explains it is very common sense. And
Yep.
I find that in this kind of economy, this kind of transition situation, it is it is common sense a lot of times. That's not very common, right? And I
Hmm.
find that yes, even though with everything that's going on, and I don't know if you experience that in your business, but we still have such low inventory. Anything that comes on is still grabbed. You know, I know people are talking about properties sitting longer in the market and so forth, but I'm just not seeing it in our market
Yeah.
unless it's really badly overpriced. It's just going,
Yep.
and obviously we're going into a spring market. Obviously, we're going into a time in the real estate cycle where it's supposed to be the hottest, and that starts
Hmm.
as of April. It usually starts even March, but April, because the whole point of this cycle, for anybody who's not aware, is because majority of times it's tied around school
Yep.
and parents who have kids and so forth. They want their kids to start in a new school by the time that they want. So that's why you always have what's called a spring market, so that they can transaction and sell their property and buy property before they start the new school in the fall.
Hmm.
And I find that this year it's on fire. I mean, we just had a property that went on the market. There was 25, I think 25 plus people that showed up at the open house. Five people were standing in the door. I mean, it's definitely a hot market. And it makes you kind of wonder and pause with the interest rates, right? Now we're talking about the traditional consumer, right?
Yep.
Now that's not the space that we're in. We're more in the investor space, right?
Yeah.
But I do believe that those two correlate, because if you take the real estate investor, a lot of times they're going to have a lot more benefits typically, because they're going to either come in with cash, or they're going to have a lot more favorable terms than an emotional buyer who has just the mindset they're gonna live in there for the next 7 to 10 years. They're gonna raise their children. If they don't have children, they're gonna have their pets. If they don't have their pets, they're gonna have just enjoy the property and so forth. And I just find like it's very interesting how things are progressing, and the rates keep going up, but it's not stopping. It's not
It,
stopping people from buying. And but it is causing a trickle effect where it is pricing people out of the market. People who are trying to buy a property even for 300,000, 400,000, if they're new time home buyers, they're getting priced out.
Yeah. I would say, remember last Sunday in Philadelphia where there was a water contamination issue
Yeah.
and
Oh, yeah. I
the
mean,
water.
everybody knew. I mean, I heard people went to ShopRite in this. I mean, we're making this very local. This show is national, but yeah, we're making
Yeah,
this very local. But yeah, everyone, we had
yeah,
last week, and it wasn't East Palestine how it was reported, but we did have a situation where there was contamination, and it was latex that got in the water. Go ahead, Mario.
yeah. So my reference to it is, I had a party for my son on Sunday. A couple of my buddies that live downtown Philadelphia had an alert on their phone about the latex that happened in the water. When they were going back, I told them, I said, guys, there's going to be a shortage of water when you get to Philadelphia. The bottle of water that they're charging for $1 or $5 a case, let's use a case, $5 a case, is going to be now $10 a case. Why don't you grab the cases now on this side of the bridge before you get there?
Hmm.
Because of the shortage. Same things with real estate. Even if there's a shortage and there's a lack of, supply, there's going to be a demand. So it's going to bump prices and people will still pay for it because they need it, just like they need water. Just like back to what you said about the real estate part, there's still someone's gonna have to buy a house in this spring market, period.
Hmm.
So even if interest rates are up, people are still gonna buy houses. It will not change because there's a lack of supply. Same as the water situation.
Yeah.
So even if rates are high, people are still gonna buy. There will be a there's always a limit where people will stop paying a certain price point. But right now, we're not talking about $1 million mansions. We're discussing homes in that 300, four hundred
Yep.
thousand dollar
Yep.
range, and it's just a matter of if someone's appetite is willing to say, "I love this home. I'm willing to pay this interest rate for the home I love." So if you renovate the property on the investor side to a retail buyer and they're in love with it, they're going to pay the rate because they love the property. They're getting sold by the realtor as well. Why they can, what do they call it? Buy the rate or date the rate, marry the home type thing,
Yep.
because you're going to refinance the rate later.
Yep.
People are still going to buy the homes because there's a lack of water, there's a lack of inventory. It's not going to happen short term. So I don't see anything changing. The Avalons, the high end like Cape Cod homes down the shore, Beverly Hill homes, they're going to take a bath because why would you pay your interest rate? Say you're paying interest on a $1 million property at like $12,000 interest a month. You're not doing it, so you're more affluent. But anyway, I wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, and we're going to pivot this to investors in a second, but when it comes to properties, I've been to several events this weekend in the local area, and the same conversations happen. Why would somebody want to sell their property now and get into a rate where they are double where they were before, right?
Yeah,
And the answers that I keep on hearing is because they have a need, right? They have some kind of need, whether life happens to all of us, and it's a lifetime event that happens in order for properties to be able to be moved. In
mm,
most cases, people who are in just kind of like, let me see the market and see how things go, they're sort of out of the market right now, right? And my question for you, and when it comes to investor space, I
yeah,
mean, fix and flips, right? um Fix and flips are definitely very still happening right now and very
yeah.
sought after, but it's getting that fix and flip, right? It's
Oh
getting
yeah.
that fix and flip. We actually had a property, me and my buddy, we actually are looking to buy a property that we can flip. He just flipped the property in Cherry Hill and was very successful with it. And he's like, find me another property. And I'm like, it's like finding like a needle in the haystack, right?
Oh
I
yeah.
am talking about consistency, right? So we're gonna frame today's conversation around consistency,
Hmm.
um, and tied to just real estate in general. We're going a little bit into investment, we're going to into retail, because at some point, all real estate is going to come down to retail, because that's where you can get your best money, right?
Yeah.
So, because what happens is, for anybody that doesn't know, is that predominantly when you do a fix and flip, you buy as an investor, you put in the renovation costs, and then you sell the property to a consumer buyer for top dollar.
Yep.
So that's kind of like the idea. So that's what I'm saying. It's like starts with the investment piece, and then it transitions into end state residential person.
Yeah.
Um, Let me ask you a question. Is
Yeah.
there any and Mario, I'd love for you to tell people a little bit about the programs that you do with option to buy and things like that.
Oh
And my
yeah.
question for you is, from an investor standpoint, is there any advantage for you to do a fix and flip and sell it not to a consumer, well, sell it to a consumer, but sell it not as a regular transaction where they go get a mortgage, but sell it as an option where they actually are going to do rent to buy. Is there
Definitely.
a, is there a benefit to the investor at first?
Well, it depends on the investor's uh, capital situation. Do they have a hard money loan on it? And if they do have a hard money loan on it, how long is the length of time that they have? Traditionally, when you borrow money from a hard money lender, they give you a 1 year window. If the renovation is like a 30-day in and out job, I would consider actually just flipping it because you want to get in and get out and sell it. If the property is sitting there, I would entertain all offers. There could be an offer potentially where the person is not yet qualified today, but they're willing to pay a little bit more. Let me actually change this so I don't get. So they're willing to pay a little bit more than even say the property appraises for 300,000 is worth 300,000, but they just don't have the financing today, but they'll have the financing in 6 months from now. What you can do, even in a short term situation, if you're not getting bites from the traditional buyer, but this person loves it, you can work out a program with them by what I would do is check in with a lender that you work with locally, or just Google a lender and say, hey, I have a buyer, a potential buyer. Could you see if they would be qualified in the next year? That would be the easiest way to find out if they could get qualified. If the person could get qualified in the next year or less, then that would be a decision that you would have to make as an exit strategy of saying, you know what, would it be worth me paying the interest on the money or holding the note for this buyer because the buyer is going to buy it from me? There's a couple variables that you would have to take into consideration. What is the down payment they're willing to give you? If the home is worth, let's say, $300,000 and they're willing to put up 10% up front and give you 30 grand down, the buyer is very serious about buying the property for you, which is a nice windfall of cash. The way I look at it is I get 30 grand from the person. They would be paying me every single month a premium as well because I'm renting to own to them, even
Mhm.
short term, and then I'm cashing them out short term. So this is a short term to me rent to own.
Mhm.
Um, and then while you're renting to own to them short term, you get the $30,000 payday. You're going to get a premium monthly, and then you're going to get them cash. They're going to cash you in let's call it 9 months, and
Mhm.
you also beat the seasoning period that you had with the lender. So I'm not sure if you followed it, Dennis. I'm sure other people can follow it. It's just that could be an exit strategy if you can't sell immediately to a retail buyer. Um, this would go into play where the retail you didn't do the renovation that the retail buyer is absolutely in love with. You get 40, 50 people in there, they don't love the property, but then this other person who's not yet qualified, they're willing to give up some things. They're more open and just grateful and thankful to buy the home than the people that are qualified. Let's just call it that way. Because when I sell rent to owns, I don't have any tenant buyers even currently right now that didn't come in grateful for the opportunity. They're really more grateful for the opportunity than they look at the home aesthetically. Granted, the aesthetics are important, but they're more looking for someone that's willing to work with them on a financing level.
That's awesome. Let me ask you this question. So,
Mhm.
with this being a creative, we both are very creative real
Yeah.
estate investors. What's the main difference? And this is something that might be how words are structured, but what's the main difference between a real estate wrap, and rent to own. Is there any differences, or is just how it's being basically purchased, how it's being acquired? To me, when I hear that rent to own is that you're holding the note, the deed, excuse me, to the property until they're ready to buy. Where with the wrap, they're actually you actually transfer ownership to them, right? And
Yep.
then you can but you can seize it back if they go into a default kind of state. So
Yes.
what's the main difference from your perspective that you've seen between the two?
It's the same thing. Well, there's variations of it. Rent to own is a word used for consumers.
Hmm.
Consumers resonate rent to own. They don't resonate wrap. Wrap is an internal investor word,
Hmm.
and a real estate wrap is it's a subject to you're taking over the deed and then you're selling it to a tenant buyer who is a
Hmm.
rent to own buyer. Rent to own or what's another word? There's a couple other variations that you can
Lease
use.
option? No, not
Yeah,
lease option. Okay.
lease purchase option. Lease
Hmm.
purchase option would go into play to the buyer. But when you say rent to own, it just lands better. It sounds better to the consumer. Wrap. There's another one called the sandwich. Those are
Okay.
when you do a lease purchase option on the front, a lease purchase option on the back end. Those are my favorite deals. I love doing those. I've done several of them. Um, so a sandwich deal is where you do a lease purchase option with the seller, where you're leasing to own it with them for a period of time, and then on the back end, or after you do a lease purchase option, you do a lease purchase option with the buyer. Okay, and it's not a wrap because you're not taking possession or taking the deed of the place. If that makes sense.
That's that's really cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I think there's a lot of key terms that go around on YouTube and other social platforms that are kind of confusing, and they sort of mean the same thing. Maybe even some slight changes, but they truly mean similar components. Where an individual could get into properties
yeah,
without having to qualify for traditional financing. In most cases, we're qualifying them for traditional financing because they don't qualify for whatever the criteria is from a regular bank.
yeah. And both options, a lease purchase option on the front end with a seller, as you mentioned, is a mechanism that you use when it's a for sale by owner. The for sale by owner person is having a hard time selling, so you present a lease purchase option to them. A for rent by owner. If you see a for rent by owner and the property sitting several months on the market, you can pitch them lease purchase option. You can tell them that you're
Hmm.
renting the property to own it. Third one that I always do is expired listings. You can pitch it to them because they don't want to sell it traditionally with a realtor because it didn't work out for them. The key part of this, though, of doing a lease purchase option on the front end and on the back end, because I almost got jammed up on this, because I had a litigation attorney tell me this after the fact,
Hmm.
is you have to record a notice of option on the
Hmm.
property. If you don't record a notice of option, if you find a buyer and the buyer does buy the property and there's no notice of option recorded, you could lose the spread on the sandwich that you created because you didn't record the notice of option. Even
Hmm.
though you have a lease purchase option with the seller, you need a notice of option recorded by a litigation attorney for the purchase price that you agreed to with the seller. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I'm
Yeah.
sure it makes sense.
Yeah.
And by the way, anybody that's watching this,
A
you can
little
definitely
advanced, but yeah.
post in your questions. We're happy to answer questions. I actually want to talk about a question that I had that came from a sub to students. I'm not going to go into names or details, but it's actually an interesting kind of question. But before we do that, want to just let everybody know that on April 15th, we're having a live event in South Jersey. I'm going to post a link between or below. Even though that it says sold out, put in your contact information because we're going to be opening up a spot for a couple more people. It is where you're going to come in, no money out of your pocket, and learn about what it takes to purchase a creative deal, which is what's very sought after in the market, and how to raise capital and be able to acquire it with little to no money out of your own pocket. I will give you a hint, everyone. It does take consistent work to get all of that done. It's not just you're going to be sitting on a couch and basically saying, I want to do this, right? It's a consistent work and it ties into what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Also, starting next week, I'd like to start bringing in other uh, potential creative people that would like to get their deals analyzed. I'm in talks with several people, so we might have some live reviews of your deal. We'll try to make sure that it's maybe the ads are blocked off, but we'll definitely take a look at the creative deals and start analyzing and helping with exit strategies. So this show goal long term is to bring other friends of ours that are
Hmm.
essentially in the real estate space, talk about their experiences, and on top of everything, be able to analyze your opportunities anywhere in the United States. You have a property, wholesale doesn't work, none of the option works. That's when you have to go creative, and
Yep.
that's what we're going to start doing. It'll be exciting, and that's what me and Mario really signed up to do: is help other people here identify exit strategies, evaluate if it's a creative deal, and there's so many exit strategies out there.
Yeah.
Mario, anything you want to say to what I just said?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the event too is going to be, um, I'm sure that the type of audience that's going to come are going to look and want to look at subject to, but I'm going to bring as much just pure authenticity of what it looks like to do subject to. And I'm going to be very blunt and honest and say, hey, this is not the easiest effing thing to do, but you're going to have to plug in. You're going to have to put the educational hours in. You're going to have to make the calls. You're going to have to listen to people do it live. And um, I want to just deliver and share with them the actual facts of how this is done correctly, because I see it so many times online that people talk about doing creative deals, but until you do it wrong, or if you're not in the right mentorship, you can't it's not something that just can happen by accident. We obviously we're in the sub two community, and Dennis is the local leader of the group, but we're above the entire group is Pace Morby, and he's obviously one of the best in the business, if not the best. And just hearing his role playing, how he does the basics of talking to sellers, understanding the right questions to answer or ask, and there's just so many variables involved in it. The legal aspect, putting the right deal structure together. There's several components to it, but this is not a quick in and out type job. You definitely should lean on experts and people that are established first, and after you do it 3 4 times, then you'll start being able to take the training wheels off. But creative finance is not something that you just jump right into. Wholesaling, you can learn it in 2 months, period. It's a fact. I mean, I've trained guys. It's really underwriting deals, knowing that you can't buy $1 bottle of water for $1. You have to buy it for, say, 40 50 cents on the dollar. Whole uh, creative finance, you can buy it for $1. You can buy a bottle of water retail. Totally different animal, but you have to know all the components, the structural stuff, and then the legal matters. When wholesaling is really very much more straightforward. Um, and But yeah, creative stuff is exciting. I love it, and it takes a certain person. I feel Dennis is very creative as well in his own right, and most people in our community you'll see are very thoughtful and outside the box thinkers anyway. And But I think the event's going to be great. Dennis is going to dive into his background and his ability to raise capital, and you will need capital in the beginning as a newbie, or even if you're not a newbie, your mindset will shift even if you're established to use other people's money. And Dennis will elaborate on it. And it's an important topic because, like myself, I've done it where I've used all my own reserves and my own funds when I could have used another person's money by not knowing how to go about raising it or asking the right questions. And Dennis is going to unpack that. Dennis, I actually want to kick it back to you with a question from your experience on raising capital, because you obviously have way more experience than I do in the space. It's a To me, it's a different function in the business. It really is. It's a high level function. It's a lot of trust involved. Tell me what you did. Um, I know you worked in a bigger space, which is commercial, but what's like the basic components of going out there and asking someone, hey, how do I, how can I borrow money from you, Dennis? Like, what's the conversation like, and what should you provide?
Well, I think that a lot of people do it wrong. The first thing that comes off when I hear you ask this question is that we're not talking about money to go buy having a soda, right? We're talking about money that can potentially impact the person that's going to give you the money. It might have took 10 years. How, who knows how long to save that? So
Yeah.
literally, they have to really trust you.
Hmm.
And I'll dive into a lot of this, but real trust comes in is that by you establishing yourself, and unfortunately, people say like I don't want to go to friends and family initially. Well, I'll be honest with everybody here right now. If your friends and families don't trust you, you're gonna have a hard time raising private capital. You really will.
Yeah.
And I hear that a lot. Oh, I don't want to go to my friends and family. Well, why not? You
Yeah.
know? Well, it's then in that case, the deal that you get involved in, there something in the back of your mind says to me that you have doubts. And if I was going to say what's the most important thing about raising private capital is having no doubts and being able to address any objectives that's going to be thrown at you. And I'll give another example is that when when you go to a friends or family member, they whether they know it or not, they know that you're changing, right? So if you're somebody that is working at McDonald's and you're asking for $50,000 to go and flip a property or get in a deal, I don't know if they're gonna be too happy about giving you that. And by the way, McDonald's is a great place to work. I worked at Burger King when I started my career.
I was a
Um,
McDonald's guy.
there you go. But today we'll say Target. Um, So ultimately, when it comes to raising private capital, is that you have to address two things from each um, concerned investor. Number one, how will I get back my money?
Yep.
So I give you today this amount of money. How will I get it back? Which means that you
Hmm.
need to have a plan behind it. And some people might just be really charismatic and they'll be able to communicate that out, or they might have to put together a PowerPoint presentation together. But predominantly, in all of the investors that I spoke to and worked with, and I have probably at this point has spoken to over 200 plus investors, um, probably even more. I would say probably even 300 plus investors. But it's in the high 200s, low 300s, and what I would say is that all of these investors have the same um, mindset, whether they're very wealthy, what's called a credit investor, whether they're just regular, um, what's classified average people that just have either a Roth IRA that they can lend from, or maybe they just have some money in the savings that they just don't want to see grow at the percentage that is growing, and that is ultimately comes back to my second point, and that is um, when will I get my money back that you promised me, right?
Yep.
So the first one is how am I going to get my money back, and when will I get my money that you promised me, right? And it's interesting because when people say the first one, to me, it's like they almost are looking at it. My perspective, once again, Mario, is that they are okay if even on this first one you don't even return them a large percentage return, but you return them what you promised them,
Yep.
right?
Hmm.
And that's where so that's why that's the first question, and I'll get a lot more into it. I'm gonna have my own PowerPoint, talk about different situations I've been in large multifamily acquisitions, 100 plus units. um, the conversation is no different in those versus if you're trying to do a fix and flip and you just need money to do a down payment so that you can pay the hard money lender. Go ahead, Marty, you had a
I have
question.
a tricky, interesting question for you, because this is where the tricky part is. You said friends and family. I work at Target, right, Dennis? I've been dabbling real estate. I'm a new kid, but I have a smoking hot deal. Deal's unbelievable. I don't know real estate too much. I've only been doing it for 4 months, but I know this is a deal. It's going to make $70,000. My friends and family think, this is just one of those things that I'm going to try and then I'm going to stop doing. Where do you take that deal to get money for it? Because it's a smoking hot deal.
I mean, if I was in that situation,
You're that kid.
I would start calling the side of the road where they say, "We'll buy your house." That would be the first place that I would go.
Where else would you start?
The next place that I would go is I would actually find. I mean, it all depends timing, Mario. And I think the
Yeah.
biggest thing that I would say, time kills deal.
Yep.
Times kills deals. If you have some time, I would go to my local RIA.
Yep. Smart.
Local RIA is a great place to just bring that. And you know what's
And
really
you're going
good
to raise
about
your
it?
hand, right? You're going to say to everybody, I got a deal.
Yeah, you're gonna
Right?
run in and screaming, "I got a
Yeah.
deal!" And
Yeah.
here's the thing, Mario. I've seen deals that are smoking deals that get funded. It does take the right person, charismatic to explain it. Pace Morby talked about this actually,
Did
where
he?
yeah, he actually talked about it. I think either was like last Tuesday or the Tuesday before at the family office. He's like, for a while, he was the private capital raiser for his company. Why?
Hmm.
Because whenever he basically goes and builds that relationship, he cares a lot more about the other person than actually even the money.
Hmm.
And he would be so concerning that he addresses all of the questions that the the lender will ask them, that it just it just that they will definitely lend to him, right?
Sure.
And what he said was he did hire certain people, and they were sort of like very transactional about it.
Sure.
So, in my opinion, there are good deals to have that can be sunk if you don't properly sell the vision and the story. And I feel like that's even myself sometimes when it comes to an exit strategy, right? There's so many exit strategies on properties. And whenever you essentially are presenting, it's really a business plan that you're presenting to an investor who's going to give you money to get back his money and then some returns on top of that. So
Hmm.
the business plan needs to have an exit strategy. In multifamily space, it's simple. We we decrease the expenses, we increase the rents, and we increase the rents by doing renovations, adding things such as dog run, adding storage spaces, um, renovating apartments where they don't look like 1970s anymore,
Hmm.
and and then we can increase the rents. We're not the Grand Cardones of the world, like he said. I can come into a property, just say I'm increasing it $200. Sometimes, if you do that, and you're not in the right area, you actually might have a major issue because people will leave your property.
Yeah.
In the single space, there's a lot more things you have to think through because there is so many buzzwords out there. The most standing traditional one, which most people get involved in, is the 12-month rent, right? It's called the T12, which
Hmm.
is for the next 12 months, a tenant comes in and signs a lease, promising you that whatever you have agreed, they're going to pay you each month a fee till the time that they move on. And then at the end of 12 months, there might have to be a resign for next year to renew that agreement. And at that point, rent might increase.
Hmm.
But in single family space, your business plan could be a little tricky because there's so many exit strategies, right?
Hmm.
So, like I said, the most default one is the T12. Then you get into all of these other ones: medium term rentals, short term rentals, um, sober housing, um, wraps, as we talked about.
Yeah.
Also, military housing. There is international student relocation. I just heard about it recently. Like there's so many different strategies, and different strategies is going to warrant you a different amount that you'll be able to pay back to your investor.
Yep. You're right. Yeah.
Was that a good
And
answer?
it was great. Yeah. I think that that would be for me. I understand it. For a newbie, the easiest, what you said, was running it into the RIA and just raise
Right,
your hand and just
right.
scream that I have a deal.
Yeah.
The other stuff you have, I think the biggest part that I take away is there's so many exit strategies that I can pitch several backup plans.
Right.
If this plan doesn't work, this is the plan. This is the plan.
Right.
This is the option. The way I raised money myself was exactly what Dennis said in the beginning, going to friends and family initially and borrowing money from them and actually partnering with them in deals. Another podcast or another episode, we can talk about how I
Yeah.
did it
Yeah.
incorrectly, because when you're
Me
actually
too.
running
Me
it,
too.
managing it, you give up too much equity and cash
Yep.
flow, and it makes zero
Yep.
sense.
Yeah.
But to get yourself running and to understand the business, it's what, let's say, is necessary.
Right.
That's where, if I knew education existed, this was pre Instagram and mentors, I would have gladly paid for it, because it would have saved me thousands of hundreds of thousands of dollars by
Right.
not signing up for bad partnerships and things like that.
And if you're brand new, the other tip I'll give everybody: if you're brand new, do not try to take down the deal down alone. You
Yes.
will
Oh
make
yeah.
less money,
Yep.
but make sure you find that expert that
Mhm.
will walk you through it.
Yep.
Because if you don't properly get contracts in place, I'm not an attorney. I'm not, I'm going to say my legal disclaimer. But and actually, South Jersey, this area is not an attorney state. Other parts of the country, it could be, and there's a lot of states that are. But this part of South Jersey, we call Delaware Valley, you don't need an attorney to transaction. You just go to a title company. But if you're brand new and you got a smoking deal, well, you gotta go find an expert and say, hey, expert, I know that you can help me with this. I'm fine giving you a percentage of this deal, but at least I will get, not only will I make money on this deal, but I'll also get the experience.
I
And
agree.
guess what?
Any form of it, Dennis. I would do it, even if it's a deal that you think it's worth wholesaling, it's worth
Right.
running a wrap, running any
Yeah.
scenario. It's better to send it to someone that has already underwrote it and work backwards by explaining to you how they came up with, this is a great deal, this is not a great deal, and listen intently to not make the same mistake twice.
Yeah.
And the
Absolutely.
partnering is right. But there's some guys out there, young guys that I've encountered, that are, they get that. They do get it. They're like, you know what? I will gladly bring money to the table, partner with you, and take like 5%, because the education alone is more valuable than the 5%. Those are the ones that get it. The ones that want to do a 50-50 split and all these different things, there's no value for you, because why would you partner with somebody
Yeah.
on a 50-50 split when it doesn't make sense? But
And you know what? Here's the thing that I'm going to say to everyone here: if you're brand new, you need to be more flexible with somebody that's an expert, because the expert has lots of brand new people reaching out to them.
tons.
That's just a reality. Um, my phone every day is blowing up with just brand new people. I'm happy to help out, happy to have the conversation, but I have to schedule time and make myself available to make sure that I can help them be successful in what they're going to be. And the reality is, I'm going to try to treat everybody equally and fairly, whether you're brand new or not brand new. That's just how I am. But there's people out there that will only work with you if you give them the percentage that they want, and sometimes it's okay. I don't see
Yeah.
that being a problem. It's just part of your education.
Yeah. I look at everybody as, it's a long-term investment for
Yeah,
the newbie and the let's say the old dog that's been around.
yeah,
Nobody's looking to get anybody over. I think it's a matter of being able to share the information and knowing the other person's time is valuable. Anybody that does real estate full time, they're just swamped with a million things going on, and
yeah,
you should think that it is precious for them, and whatever I present to them should be sent cleanly. Not, uh, I'm telling you, Dennis, I get inbox stuff of like, hey, can you look at this deal? And then they send me a picture, and then information that's all out of whack. But then there's other people that send you very clear bullet points and information of like, all right, this is the property, this is the address,
hmm
this is the ARV, this is what the seller is willing to take, this is what the renovation number is. So it's simple and digestible for a busy person to look at.
And that's
Um,
the people that naturally some people are going to want to work with
you want
because
to work with that person.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Ooh, we got our first comment. Great tips, awesome,
Yeah,
love it. I
yeah,
mean, I think that we started off kind of not knowing where we're going to go, and I think that's going to be everyone. We're unscripted, right? We don't have an agenda.
yeah,
We're both busy professionals dedicating our time to help out the Facebook world and anywhere that this streams. And why we decided to do this is because we are creative experts, and it's a time right now where I did not see many people go out there and evaluate properties, evaluate situation, and I think there's a lot of misunderstanding when it comes to creative. So me and Mario were dedicating our time just to make sure that we provide that expertise, with no strings attached. Just like and share this video. That's all we ask. If you're getting
yeah,
value of this, we really would appreciate if you like and share this video. We're going to start up a podcast here soon. And, me and Mario, we're fairly new to this podcast and so forth. So you might hear the and maybe the straggling, no microphone and stuff like that. But I believe raw shows no. Yep, there you go. I stumbled. Integrity,
yep.
and it shows ethnicity. Mario, say it
Authentic,
for me. Yeah, there you
authenticity.
go. There you go. There you
That's a
go.
hard word to get out. I
There
know.
you go. There you go. It really is. And I'm having a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is. It
I
would allow it
really,
allows me to take the lid off my head
yeah,
and start thinking freely.
yeah,
To add to what you're saying, what it allows me to do is to get things that are going on during the week unbottled and out, and information that I've been gathering or hearing and sharing it with the masses, and which is good. Also, as you mentioned, Dennis, for you and I, it's good practice for
yeah,
us to be able to work through those things, because I think the last podcast of today was pretty much a big improvement. It's a lot
yeah,
smoother,
yeah.
and
And,
it's
and,
just going to keep refining and
and
getting
it
better.
just keeps getting better. And you know what?
Yeah.
It's like Mario said, for us, it's therapy.
Yeah.
It's therapy for us to come on here and talk about real estate. And I can speak for myself. This is my passion. I've been doing
Yeah.
this since '99. I was a residential. I did wholesaling. I did commercial. My wife is in real estate. She loves it. She loves it as well. So for us, it's my mom was in real estate. My brother is also a licensed real estate agent in New York.
Yeah.
I think he's licensed in New York, which means that he's licensed in Florida as well. So to me, I just really enjoy it, but I want to make sure that besides me enjoying this, is we provide value to anybody that spends the time to watch this,
Yeah.
and that's the only thing that we can ask for, and only ask for is for you just to share the link, tell us about your friends, and we just want to keep bringing this value because whether you're a brand new investor, whether you're an intermediate investor or experienced investor, or if you're in the real estate space, a lot of people who are right now in the real estate space, who are agents, are starting to kind of scratch their heads. And Mario, if I remember correctly, one of the properties that you're going to show is going to be working with an agent. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. And
Love it.
agents are, I think people overlook agents. Agents are so valuable, and agents don't see their own value outside of their little community. I think agents are a little compartmentalized, and agents only working with agents. They have to be open to create creative guys like you and I, Dennis, but also wholesalers, also investors. I guess they're so in a retail mentality. Maybe it's because of when you take the testing and the books and the way brokers work. I don't know, Dennis, because I don't come from that background. They're not accepting of entering the entire community of real estate. So I think the breaking the mold and the change of saying, I'm a realtor, but I'm also willing to spread my wings with all these different people. It's going to be fruitful, and financially, you're going to make a lot more money.
Yep.
You're going to make a lot more money by, if there's a problem that a seller brings to you, you can flip it to an investor, or you can say, hey, I have this situation. What do you think? What's your feedback? Because I do the same thing. There's times, Dennis, I get retail sellers. I send them a mailer. They call me and they're like, Mario, I want this number. And I tell them straight up, I'll say, listen, what you want won't work for me because I need it at this specific number. Are you willing to do creative? Are you willing to do terms? Blah, 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 blah. If they say no across all platforms, I say, well, why don't I think there's one of two things. I can suggest a realtor for you, or I would tell you your best route is to list it with a realtor. And I push it away from myself because it doesn't make sense for me. And realtors are going to take those leads. There's enough leads to go out, but realtors are also missing, Dennis. I think this is valuable. I was thinking about this today when I was driving. Realtors don't realize how competitive the market is right now. There are so many home buying companies, so much creativity of using social media now. The old ways of getting listings is changing. If they're sitting on their hands, if they're not plugged in, if they're not learning creative, if they're not learning the tactics of how home buying companies go to market and market themselves, they're going to be really struggling financially. They're going to get less listings. They are going to be less informed because they are not they are not in tune with what investors understand and underwrite deals. Because if you are not a multitasking under like if you don't understand the facet of real estate as a whole now, you're going to get left behind. And the one thing I'll tell you wholesalers are good at and direct home buying companies are great at is marketing and sales. They do not give a shit about anything else. They really do not care about real estate. They look at sales and marketing. That is what a home buying company is excellent at. Realtors, they're okay at marketing. I would say they're okay at marketing. They do their little posts that they sold or they listed a property. That's not getting it done anymore. Believe me, it's not getting it done. You're going against dogs. You're going against wolves that are that it's that competitive on a direct seller. So if you're going against all these wolves and dogs and you're putting these pretty pictures up, believe me, is not working because these guys are skilled, they're trained, they're working it every day. That's my thoughts. But
Yeah,
realtors are
no,
great. I love realtors, but they got to realize there's serious competition out there.
yeah, and I think we should do a show just around that because I have a lot of
Oh yeah,
ideas, and I want to keep
yeah,
this to an hour. But yeah, let's
yeah,
maybe that should be our next show. Is talk about um, how real estate is changing and how real estate agents need to start being a lot more open to doing different kind of innovative things. Because
I would
I
love
mean,
to.
my wife, I work
Great
with my
topic.
wife, and she's doing a lot, such as door knocking, which is not really has been going around for a long time. But going
Yeah,
back to the basics, but yeah, we could definitely do another show just on that. But here's my question, right?
yeah,
So I had a somebody reach out to me, and they have a property in regardless New Jersey, New York, whatever, and the property is currently going into pre foreclosure, right?
yep.
And as part of the pre foreclosure process, schedule for anybody who does not know how the pre foreclosure works, which means that the property has defaulted, the person that owns the property has defaulted paying the mortgage, and the mortgage holder has initialized the proceedings to have it be
Foreclosed on.
foreclosed on. Here's where it gets interesting. The person that is foreclosing on the property is a hard money lender,
Hmm.
which tells me two things. One, there's a lot of equity in this property.
Oh yeah.
A lot of equity in this property because no hard money lender would give a property um, without a lot of spot in
They
case
generally want to extend it.
yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
Two, um, this property has a lot of probably additional fees that have not been paid, most likely back taxes, right?
Yeah.
um, so question for you, Mario, and I want to get how you would respond to this kind of example. What I said was, okay, the first thing that I mean, obviously, in order to take over this from the seller, A, you have to pay off the hard money, whether you refi that into a traditional loan, whether you pay with cash, whatever the case is. Two, you're going to have to catch up the taxes as well, because even
Yep.
though that's not being foreclosed on, I'm sure at some point it will be, because if this person wasn't paying his obligation, most likely he wasn't paying his taxes either. So one question that was brought to me, I mean, that's all fine, and you can disagree and agree with what I said, but the question that was brought up to me, would I contact the hard money company to try to negotiate something? And I was sitting there, I was thinking like, okay, well, this company essentially knows already that they have a lot of equity in the property. Have you ever had a situation where you actually went to a hard money lender, who is the one that's foreclosed, and said, "Hey, listen, let's not. I have the seller. I'm taking over the property. I'm coming into the LLC. I'll pay off what's owed. Can we come to some kind of agreement? What do you think?"
Um, so I am the investor, and I'm my loans due from the hard money lender.
Hmm.
Is that what you're saying?
Hmm.
Well, I
And
have
they're
had that
and they're
situation.
foreclosing on it, and he has not paid, so they're foreclosing on the property because whether they're in the first position
Oh,
or second, they're foreclosing on the property.
so that means he didn't make payments.
Yeah, he didn't
He
make
didn't make
payments.
payments.
Yeah,
Hmm. Well, he's in some shit.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been in that situation. Have I been in a situation where I needed an extension from a hard money lender? Yes, I have. But I've never not made a payment. There's two different ways. You can prepay with lenders in advance. They roll it into the loan for 12 months, or they make you pay interest only payments monthly.
Right.
No, so I've never had a default situation. With him, the fact that he's not paying means he's in distress. And what I would do is call him. Well, first I would call him first and ask him like, all right, what renovations left on the job?
Yeah, from my understanding, he renovated the property. So
It's
from
done.
yeah, from what I said, it's done. And but I guess he can't pay him back. I don't know. I don't know the story. But let's
Yeah,
say the real question is, would you consider going to the hard money lender and asking the question if you can potentially take over and make it whole?
no, I would ask him to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I would ask him to do it, saying, hey, I'm 10 grand in the rears. If I catch this up, are we still okay with the date in which you're the due date, because there's a due date on the loan.
Hmm.
Say the due date is September 1. They shouldn't have a problem. There's terms and conditions. But if you're paying the 10 grand off in the rears, do the numbers still punch out and make sense? They should. They should. But if I'm working directly with him as the seller, I would put a number on it. If it's say $100,000, my $100,000 to you, Mr. Seller, who took out the hard money loan, is including that $10,000 payment in the rears.
Hmm.
You know,
Let's say the seller says, you know what, I'm tired of this. I don't want to deal with these guys. I'm just walking away.
okay. Well, I would need the entire agreement that he has with the hard money lender and
Hmm.
what he owes,
Hmm.
and then from there, I would need him to sign a authorization form to allow me to be a third party
Hmm.
authorized user
Hmm.
to speak on his behalf.
Okay.
And then when you do, you present it to them, and then you can talk on his behalf.
Awesome.
Maybe you can refinance it. Maybe
Yeah.
there's the ability to refi. There's, like we talked about exits about
Right.
45 minutes ago. It could be an exit that works,
Right.
but there's a couple questions that need to be answered to see if it's worth taking that length
Yeah,
to help
yeah,
out.
that's the confusion part to me because if it's been renovated and like why doesn't he just refi? So I think there's more to the story, and
Yeah,
I don't have all the information, but this is the kind of questions that we get. We don't
yeah.
get the whole story. We get essentially either what the seller told him, what he thinks the seller told him, whatever the case is. But I just
I
figured,
would always ask get me the documents, any documents that you have with a lender, even when we have loan like mortgages. We say, could you get me a mortgage statement? If you have a mortgage statement, it'll help clear a picture of the numbers. Once you have the numbers situated, then you can say, all right, tell me about the condition of the home, or can I walk it to verify that they did renovate the property?
hmm.
And then, is there any outstanding hard money loans? Could be tricky because there could be a draw on the renovation side.
Hmm.
Did they pull the renovation money? Is there money left over from the draw?
Hmm.
You know, th- there's a little more complexity to a hard money loan that I would say be aware of, so the
Hmm.
seller doesn't screw you, because there
Hmm.
could be some things that are open. I've heard some horror stories with guys that do things like that
Oh, really? So
with contractors.
it could be a whole strategy. Oh, from a
Well,
contract.
it could be an inside job with the contractor at
Oh,
times. There was
okay.
a hard money lender that I know years ago. It happened. There was like 8 or 9 shore properties where the contractor was partners with the actual buyer, or the guy who bought the properties with the loan, and then they were taking draws and saying they did work and they didn't, and they were behind on schedule. It was a fucking nightmare. And lender found out what they were doing and they shut it down. They took possession of the homes, but those are things where you don't know if there's an inside job that you have to be weary of. So you want to know all the facts of stuff like that. I wouldn't say stay
Got it.
clear of it. It's just bring in an expert like we talked about before.
Got it. Well,
Yeah.
Mario, thank you so much. We went over an hour here, and
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun. I think
It
that
was great,
everybody
man.
should go back if you're just getting on, rewatch this. Lots of value, and that's what I said before. We're going to be unscripted. We're not going to have really an agenda. We're going to
Yeah.
just speak from our hearts and discuss the trends, discuss our experiences, what we're involved in, and also discuss that we got an event coming up, April 13th at,
Yep.
was it
Thursday,
6:30? 6:30?
6:30 to 8. We'll
Right.
keep it nice, short, right to the point.
Yeah. So I'll put a link around before this and here. And if, like I said, um, it says it's sold out because we just quickly, we can only hold so many people, but we want to open it up for a little bit more people because we have that availability. Sign up. It's a lot of fun. We're not going
Yeah.
to do anything remotely. It's going to be only on site, and we're going to have some snacks as well, drinks,
Yeah.
non-alcoholic.
Non-alcoholic. The
um,
second event will have alcohol there, depending on the show out to the first event. If we get 5 people, there may not be a second event.
Awesome.
Now we're
So
kidding.
thanks everybody. Mario, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you,
We're
Dennis.
not gonna have 5 people. We're gonna have 20. We
I
have
know.
25 people, 30
We
people.
already got people hitting us up that
Yes,
are already
yes,
hanging
yeah,
out the door, so we're good.
yes. We got
Yep.
plenty of people.
Yeah.
All right, and my kid is walking through here, so I gotta go. He gotta
Cool.
get on
Let's
his
do it.
Xbox. Well, thank you so much for coming on
All right,
Sunday.
Dennis.
Thanks everybody for coming on. Like I said, please like and share if you like this, and post in the comments what you liked or didn't like about this video. We'll make sure that we keep improving.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
Take care,
Thank you,
everyone.
Dennis. Appreciate it.
Bye.